I'm sure they all did, and people are still lounging today. So back to work. If you want to join the conversation,
Yes.
do it through different media. WhatsApp is one. You can send it through 0809 444 0981. Send those messages to 0809 444 0981. You can also send it through Twitter. Twitter handle is at smooth981fm, and use the hashtag Business Express 981. We're streaming live on YouTube, so you can watch the conversation as Rotus and I chatted about business updates. Over to you, Rotus.
Thank you. Do you know, I actually, I don't know if this strategy I'm going to share it with everyone. I didn't go out this weekend. I only went out once, and that was to go and cut my hair, right? So I didn't because I didn't have any money. I converted almost everything I had. I don't know why. I just converted almost everything I had on Friday to USD and just dumped it in my DOM account. So I had no cash to anything. And I'm in trouble because the banks are closed. Because it's still Easter holiday.
I can loan you some money.
Right. Well, okay, maybe. But I think if I had a financial emergency, I would have been
stuck.
Because I understand that the USD FX is supposed to be, it could be heading upwards this week. So it's a strategy, a bit of a risky strategy you folks out there can try. Just convert everything, dump it in your DOM account, and it will force you to stay home and be disciplined. But I think we're at 480, 486, 487, and I understand it might be, according to the BDC people I've been talking to, there's still a lot of illiquidity in the market, and it could be pushing upwards this week. So we'll monitor that and see how on the FX side of things. I trust, who is it now? One of our listeners is always complaining every time I talk about FX. Is it Dikpo? I think it's Dikpo. Every time I talk about FX, he sends a message saying, don't do that. Don't talk about FX.
Why?
I'm sure, is it that Dikpo or somebody else? I can't remember who it is that's always complaining. The big news over the weekend is that MTN and the banks seem to have, for now, mended fences. On Friday, or is it over the weekend? No, Thursday. It was Thursday going into Friday. There, all of a sudden, the number of banks took MTN off their USSD platforms, and people were not able to recharge top up their phones, their airtime. They weren't able to do airtime recharge using USSD. In fact, some of them, even bank apps, they were not able to use MTN to top up. That was because I understand that MTN controls anywhere from 70 to 80% of the USSD market, which is quite incredible based on the number of subscribers that it has. MTN decided to reduce the profit margins that that banks get from USSD platforms, I think from 4% to 2.5%. We talked about it on Tech Friday with Sayo and IO. So there was a big thing about it. In fact, over the weekend, MTN released this text message to listeners, to subscribers saying, look, sorry, you can't recharge right now, but you can do it physically. Go and recharge your top up your cards, top up your airtime by going to go and get physical, doing it physically. Or they then gave a list of fintech options, and then also I think they even have their own USSD option as well. They gave another star number to do so. So the thing is, though, and we're talking about, okay, look, who is going to blink first? Is it going to be the banks or is it going to be MTN? It was very bad timing because I understand the banks had some kind of meeting and they decided to take them off the platform. But Issa Pantami, the Minister of Communications and Digital Economy, sent out a tweet. It was either yesterday or the day before, over the weekend, saying that, okay, look, this matter is going to be resolved. He had called in the CBN and some other parties, and they'll talk about it. But MTN said, look, so they've taken it back, the profit margin essentially. So this is how it works. If you buy 100 Naira airtime, apparently the banks get it at 96 Naira, and they're able to, get a 4 Naira margin on it out of I'm just using an example, that's like a 4% spread. So the thing is that this MTN reduced that spread from 4% to 2.5. So meaning that instead of 96 Naira, they get it at 98 Naira or so, or 98.5. So that was their issue. They were like, you can't reduce the spread of profits that we get. I remember this is not the first time the telcos and the banks are tussling over USSD. The banks have been, the telcos have mobile MNOs, mobile network operators have been claiming that the banks owe them about 42.5, 43 billion naira of unpaid USSD fees. They've been going back and forth. They now moved the fees, I think, to like 6 naira 98 kobo for 20-second transactions. So they've been going back and forth. So the issue, what we're talking about on Tech Friday was, okay, look, if MTN decides to take on the banks and decides to now use fintech platforms, because I remember I tested it, I couldn't recharge with the banking platforms. It was only Zenith Bank and Fidelity that did not yank MTN off. All the others, in fact, even Diamond Bank Access, they removed MTN as an option. If you go to recharge, you wouldn't see them on the list of telcos. The bank said, okay, look, we'll resume they'll give them the 4% margin again, but tomorrow, they said April 6th, they're going to have a meeting and they're going to have to discuss this profit margin. So it looks like it's not something that they did temporarily just so that they can mend fences for now, but there has to be a meeting tomorrow. Now, what the meeting is going to entail, I guess, is over this profitability issue, because the USSD channels, because of the subscriber base that the telcos have, the banks are able to make money off the number of subscribers. MTN, of course, has about 40%, 42% market share. However, the banks also need, the telcos also need the banks. It's a symbiotic relationship. Okay? You've got the subscribers, but we're also maintaining the channels and so on and so forth. Although I think it's the banks that built the USSD infrastructure. So, you know, what was the saying? When two elephants fight, the grass suffers. Yeah, because imagine a number of people not being able to renew their or top up their airtime. And it was to do that over Easter, just didn't work out. But apparently they've resolved it. But there is a meeting tomorrow, and it looks like MTN is not going to. They might not budge. They're like, okay, look, we're going to reduce these profit margins or so. Something is going to happen tomorrow. So it was very, very interesting to see that play out, and we'll see what happens, what they decide tomorrow at their meeting tomorrow. Yeah.
I like that the minister stepped in to intervene, and it's curious. I'm just wondering what NCC, the National Communications Commission, is saying in all of this. Yesterday I saw a link that MTN actually started using Flutterwave, so some people were able to recharge through that as well. Benga Kamu said into the message, he said, we heard MTN started using fintech companies, but what MTN did, is it fair? The fact that they are big does not mean that they should throw their weight around. That's what Benga Kamu thinks.
Well, the thing is this, I was mulling over that argument in my head, and I thought to myself, hey, Rotus, which other company, which other sector of Nigerian economy enjoys a massive monopoly and that has thrown their own weight around? It belongs to the richest man in Africa, does it not? When you think about it. So if you want to start complaining about companies being too big and enjoying this and that, well, you can extend the argument. Hey, you can extend it. MTN was the first company to take a risk on Nigeria when Obasanjo liberalized the telco sector back in 2000. They paid what? Was it not $400 and something million for license?
That was a huge risk.
Massive money, massive. Yes. They took a big risk, and they've been fined. They've gone through all these things with the Nigerian government. So they've paid their dues. I'm not holding brief for them, but they've paid their dues. They've done their business here. If it was another telco who had been the first mover, had first mover advantage in Nigeria, whichever telco that would have been, they would have been the one that were the biggest right now. So if they are saying that, look, you should, we're the ones with the subscribers, we're the ones who have built this USSD channels and doing maintenance and so on and so forth. Well, I mean, that's an argument that they can have with the banks. It's one of the things you enjoy when you're the first mover and you've taken a chance in a country to offer telecommunication services. So it's
important that the NCC actually performs its regulatory functions to ensure that this doesn't happen again tomorrow. Because what usually happens is when you have this kind of squabble, the companies in their own corporate governance will decide to make some moves that will deter this kind of occurrence. coming back.
Oh yes.
Them.
And there's a fear, and there's a legitimate, although there is a legitimate fear that they've become too big and too powerful. And now they are, imagine the telco taking on all these banks. The fintech option, how many people have in the rural areas use Flutterwave? How many people in the rural areas use Carbon and all these other fintech options? They don't. So that's why the banks are so important, because so many people in rural areas and so on rely on USSD, which doesn't require internet access. So yeah, there is, to Benga's point and other people who are worried about what MTN is doing, there's an argument to be made about that. You can't get too big and too powerful and start flexing on all the banks and doing stuff like this.
But can you use USSD services if you don't have telcos operating in your area? It should be a symbiotic relationship. I feel like this thing should be sorted out ASAP, because if you talk about financial inclusion for the banks, the telcos enable that, to happen.
They do,
especially for those widely reaching areas.
Sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, Yinka says, listeners, Noni, some MTN listeners are affected now. Haven't you guys heard that since Pantami resumed office, the telco or IT space has been eventful? I like it. And then he adds, Rotus, talking about staying at home, I got the embarrassment of my life. So I took my girls out for ice cream as usual, at the usual place, starting with the C. Now, my 3-year-old finished her cup, then started screaming for more. Another 1,200 naira. I was trying to calm her down. See her, she just left the table, raced down to the ice cream stand with an empty cup to demand for more. He said, "Chai, shame catch me. Had to buy shit. I'm not trying it again."
I like that Yinka has empowered his girls to demand what they want.
For more ice cream.
Exactly. You're a good father, Yinka. I support that. I support it. But yeah, it definitely, we definitely hope that things are resolved. NCC plays the role. Pantami did intervene. But again, we have to just see how things play out tomorrow. It's because again, Fisayo talked about the M-Pesa in Kenya and how it is a completely mobile-driven system.
Yes.
Some call it an M-Pesa mistake, because regulators just gave them free rein. And now, instead, when he went to Kenya, even to buy granules or you take a bus, it is M-Pesa driven. Some of them don't even take cash. So they are trying to make sure that doesn't happen here, to where one telco will completely dominate the space. I hear that's why this whole payment service bank license thing hasn't completely gone through. You can't lend as a payment service bank license holder. So the CBN to try to keep things at a level playing field between the banks and the telcos. But when you think about how many subscribers the telcos have, when you think about, there are more telco subscribers than BBNs. So, but still they should work together for the purpose of Nigerians.
For the common good, exactly. Which is why I encouraged, people who are being proactive in terms of making sure that their services are up to par with the international best practices should be encouraged, right? If they're the ones to implement effective services and I can get uninterrupted data or internet service through their telco, why not? Give them a chance. Let's round up with these messages. Henry Manuel says, my back of the envelope opinion is that 4% spreads is a lot. Look at the volumes alone. But perhaps rather, a more considered option requires understanding of the cost outlay one banks. Now, Frank says, good morning, guys. I think the conversation should be whether banks should have any interest in airtime business. They've effectively killed small businesses that once thrived in this. That's a point. Deepak says, everyone decides to change Naira to US dollars at the same time to hedge against inflation. We create artificial demand for US dollar. The CBN, already experiencing shortage of US dollars, cannot supply additional US dollars in demand. The only option is to go to the black market. My point is never encourage any opportunity that would encourage black market operation, especially with a very fragile economy. And he says, we'll all eventually pay for it. Let's encourage real investment opportunities rather than speculative trade in foreign exchange that will put Naira in a run in middle and long term. So the outcome will be disastrous, despite it looks like a short-term solution.
That's Deepo Abi.
Yeah,
okay. It's him. Standard. He's on standard. That's he's always saying it. Meanwhile, inflation is punching me in the face. My purchasing power parity is punching me in the face. Nigerians' wages are not increasing. So what should we do? They're punching them in the face.
Wages are not increasing. Guess what? Cost of goods and services are increasing on a daily.
Everything is going up. Transportation 78% up, food inflation 21%. So we should sit down here and just be taking the punches in the face and not buy FX
and keeping our money in Naira.
People will fight, so.
No fight on a Monday. Rotus, thank you so much, man.
Thank you so much, Val. Thanks.
Enjoy your Monday.
Thank everybody for sending your message.
Yes, please, everybody. Thank you so much. Thanks to Dikbo. Thanks to Frank, Yinka, Henry Mano, Benga Kamu. Thank you so much. All right. Have a lovely day. Up next, at 7:30 will be Freshly